Welcome to another episode of Conduct Detrimental. I am Dan Lush, joined this week by Landis Barber. How's it going, buddy?
It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be back on the podcast.
Listen, you never go, I should say, I never go a few days without hearing from you in some way, shape, or form. Usually it's you writing. You are probably our, I don't know, in terms of volume, you publish more than anybody else on the site. So got to give you your props. And last time we had you on, you did a fantastic job. So it was only fitting that we give you another shot back on the pod. How's it feel to be back in the seat? Just Dan and Landis, 1v1.
Oh, man, it's great to be back here. I'm thrilled to be back. Last time, I believe, was playoff time, and it was the day the Hurricanes and Rangers were supposed to start their series. Obviously, that didn't go well for us Hurricanes fans, but
it went well for some of us, right? For the Rangers.
For the Rangers. So I'm glad we don't have teams facing off this time. So hopefully this will be better.
So it was funny. I thought of you this week. There were so many Carolina stories in the news, and I'm like, your name immediately came to mind. So let's run through. We got a busy slate for today. It's going to be one of our old school episodes. Our last couple episodes have been, very heavy NFL. Obviously, we did the KC Close, Freddie Freeman stuff. We're going to try to hit a bunch of stories that have been in the news and give people a flavor of sports law. So let's just go with the stuff that's in Carolina, and then I'll kind of lay it out. The first one that came to mind, we should address the elephant in the room. Baker Mayfield traded to the Carolina Panthers. We've been covering Deshaun Watson so heavily on the podcast. We're not going to break down the trade, don't worry. But I think the fact, and this is just me talking, I think the fact that Baker Mayfield gets traded, the most expensive insurance policy in the history of the NFL, gets traded, I think tells you that the Browns are feeling maybe a little bit more optimistic than they did before the hearings. Not to say that the Browns are right or wrong, but you don't trade Baker Mayfield mid-hearings unless you feel kind of good about it. You could have done it during the draft. You could have done it at any period of time. I don't know. Landis, you are a Carolina Panthers fan. So thoughts on my theory here that the Browns might be feeling a little more optimistic?
Yeah, I think the Browns were feeling maybe not very optimistic. I definitely think there's some optimism there. I also think it has a little bit to do with, I think the relationship was just irreparable. What was going on at the end of the season and into in the off season. I think the Browns and Baker Mayfield had just soured on each other. But there definitely is some optimism there that wasn't there before. And who knows what was going on behind the scenes in the locker room and different things, whether Baker was going to play or not play and different things like that. But I agree that there has to be somewhat of an optimism there because who else is there? Jacoby Brissett? Is that who's going to start if Deshaun Watson doesn't play? So.
Well, it's funny. I said that exact comment on Cleveland Sports Radio, and the host was like, whoa, that's big. And then they aggregated, they put it into like a news article. And I'm like, I don't know. The Browns have been wrong before, right? I'm sure they didn't know all the new stuff that was going to pop up, but I think it sends a message. So we did not cover this in the last one. Judge Robinson agreed to accept legal briefs. I was actually on a show. It was so funny, Landis. I said, Judge Robinson's accepting briefs, and the host stopped me. He goes, what are briefs? And I'm like, we're not talking about boxers briefs here. This is it's like an essay. You go back to grade school, right? You're writing up some paper, you're citing your sources, and those sources are generally going to be legal cases. So when we say briefs, it's just putting it, you're reducing the oral arguments and the stuff you're saying out loud into writing. So if a judge does that, it's not all the time. Sometimes the judge will just take arguments on submissions, right? But other times they'll just listen to the arguments and maybe they'll rule from the bench. Judge Robinson didn't do it here. And I wouldn't think she would in a high profile case like this. So many moving parts. Potentially there's going to be an appeal here. So they need to see what the paper trail is. So yeah, July 11th. So at the end of the week, those papers are due. And then people keep asking me, when is a decision going to be in? Does the Baker Mayfield mean that Watson's going to be playing? I'm like, listen, it's a judge. The wheels of justice move very slowly. Could it take a couple weeks? Could it take a couple months? Yeah, it could, right? The Washington Commanders investigation, which we'll talk about, that took like a year, right? The Watson NFL investigation to this point took a year and a half. So if Judge Robinson wants to take her time, it's not going to shock anybody. So we'll see. And obviously Goodell is waiting on the other end whenever she does make a decision. Landis, any points on Watson? We talked a lot of Watson this past week, but I'll give you the final word on Watson, and then I'll lay out what we're going to talk about in the show.
No real big points. I would say, though, that, the fact that she is taking her time accepting these briefs, I wouldn't necessarily expect a quick turnaround on that.
Unless she's not going to read the briefs, unless she's just not going to read them.
unless she's not going to read them, and then
Got to get those billable hours in.
Hey, you never know what can happen. People do odd things. She might only read the conclusion of each one, and then just drop one on the floor. You just never know what can happen.
Are you speaking from personal experiences? Because I certainly have experience with judges where they definitely don't read the papers.
I have heard.
No offense to any judges
stories.
listening, but
Yeah.
you know, I just it's my spider sense. Okay,
I've heard
so
wild ones.
that's our Watson stuff. We obviously got to hit the biggest story in sports. Okay, here's what's on the docket today. Dan Snyder, another one of our favorite topics, has offered to appear via video conference in front of the House Oversight Committee. So we don't really have any more news on it, but certainly going to follow that. We'll see if they want him to appear virtually. That's what Roger Goodell did. So I imagine that's going to be fine, and it's definitely a turn of events. You know, the other news which we want to spend some time with kind of dissecting, and this is more to the Carolina field. Miles Bridges, star player for the Charlotte Hornets. He's catching, really, I think his stock going way up since LaMelo has come to town. Earlier this year, he turned down a $60 million deal over 4 years. He was looking for a max deal, and it looked like he was probably going to get it. That was until these kind of really ugly photos and comments from his wife about the domestic violence allegations raised. So, Landis, you and I are going to get into that. Another randomly North Carolina story, the ACC all of a sudden is seemingly fertile ground for poaching or alliances. We're not really sure. We talked about it very briefly on the last episode, but obviously USC and UCLA both, that's going to be a big story. And then, you know, it's a matter of who's going to link up. Is Pac-12 going to link up with the ACC? How about the Big 12? So I certainly want to get into that. Obviously, you in Tar Heel country over there, you know, there's a lot of rumors that potentially some ACC schools are going to get picked up by the SEC in this arms race. And then, we have a guest. I don't want to bury the lead here. We have a guest, Josh Kusnick. He was maybe one of our most popular guests, very randomly. You know, I just called Josh up. I don't think our listeners were that familiar with Josh before. And Josh came in so hot in the last episode. And as we talked about Josh, many of you very kindly dropped in the replies, shot me texts, whatever, however he reached out to me and said that Josh was the quote, electric. So, you know, we found a way to, it was a minor league baseball bill, Landis, which we're going to get into with Josh. But we thought Josh would be a good one to come and break it down. So all good. So on the wheel of topics, Landis, what do you want to start? Conference realignment, Miles Bridges, choice is yours.
The hot topic right now is conference realignment and what's going to happen here in the future with the Big Ten and SEC. With USC and UCLA leaving recently to go to the Big Ten. Well, they announced they're leaving in 2024. Last year, Texas and Oklahoma announced they're leaving in 2025. What both of those have in common is that is when their conference's grant of rights deals expire. And now it's all on the ACC, who has this grant of rights deal going until 2036. And we saw the original grant of rights deal from 2013 that came out this week. I believe the people over The Athletic, maybe, or Andy Staples had it first. And it has come to ACC country over here, has come to the Triangle. And we've all reviewed it. We've all talked about it and what's going on with this grant of rights deal. And can ACC teams get out of it? Like the classic lawyer answer is maybe. It depends on how much money you want to spend to get out of this deal, this long-term deal. So
very quickly, you said a term. What is the Triangle? Is that a North Carolina term? I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes, the Triangle.
Are we talking about the Bermuda Triangle or a different triangle?
It's the Triangle, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. Raleigh home to NC State, Chapel Hill home to UNC, Durham home to Duke University. So,
yeah, you say this just like everyone would know that. I've never heard anybody call that the Triangle. But I wanted to preface this with this. So, like, let's take the map of the country, right? If you could have a color-coded map of, where Big 10 falls, where Big 12 falls. Like, I think conceptually people have always thought, right? I mean, there used to be the Big East, and I don't know, Northeast is, I guess, in our Power Five. I guess we're going to call that, like, see, it's funny, like Syracuse is randomly kind of throwing everything off, but you have Rutgers in the Big 10, Syracuse in the ACC. You have the SEC country, which is in the Southeast. Big 10 is kind of middle America. It's like the Midwest. And then Pac-12 is supposed to be the coast. And then Big 12 is supposed to be kind of middle America, but it's Texas, Oklahoma. Now, what we just said, right? Texas and Oklahoma both to the SEC. So all of a sudden, I don't know, there are maps getting thrown off. And now
Mm.
USC, UCLA, I made the joke on a couple shows, like, they bolt for greener pastures. They bolt to colder pastures. They're going in the middle of the country.
Yeah.
They're going 2 hours off in a time zone. So maybe these moves, like, which I think is going underreported, like maybe these moves make sense for college football because there's so much money. But can you imagine, like, I don't know, USC's like swim team competing in conference against like Penn State, like just from a swimming optics, or like any of these lesser moneyed sports, and now have to travel hours to compete in conference? Like, hopefully the money makes sense. I'm sure it does on a television side, or else these teams wouldn't be doing it. But it's just an oddity. So, we talk a lot, Landis, about, like, being a college football purist or college sports purist. Like, I don't know. There's no more purism. This is it. It's now
Yeah.
just money. It's money from the school's perspective. It's money from the
Yeah.
athlete's perspective, which I guess is good. I don't really know. I don't know what the future holds, but like it's a completely different world from the institutions down to the players. Like, and that's it. We're done. This is just the era of big business.
I mean, it absolutely is. I mean, why else do you add USC and UCLA if it's not for money? Why else do you add Texas and Oklahoma if it's not for money? It's just now being brought to the forefront of what it was before. It is now in full view for everyone to see that this is all about money, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't.
So from the legal side, because I get this question every time this pops up, like, Texas and Oklahoma left. Couldn't the Big 12 sue the SEC for kind of tortious interference with their contract? And same question goes over for UCLA and USC. How did they end up joining the Big Ten? Aren't they under contract currently with the Pac-12? Isn't someone with the Big Ten inducing them to breach their contract and break their ties to the Pac-12 to leave? So the short answer, in a vacuum, yeah, that's kind of what's happening, right? It's the same thing with like NBA tampering. Like, I don't know, we didn't talk about this, but like Jalen Brunson was like the worst kept secret in the NBA that he was going to sign with the Knicks. It was like, how did everybody possibly know that? It's like, well, maybe people are talking to Jalen Brunson while he's under contract with the Mavericks. Maybe they're talking to him outside of this window where you're not supposed to be talking to players. And I'm sure that's what's happening also in college sports. The thing is, right, like, at least when it comes to college, like, Pac-12, in order to exist, they're most likely going to have to steal some other schools from some other, conference.
Exactly.
So if they want to like sue the Big Ten, it's going to set some pretty bad precedent of them getting sued by some other conference, right? If they're trying to
Yeah.
steal Hawaii or some other school, right? It's on the coast. So it just wouldn't happen. The NBA is a different story because tampering itself in the NBA is not necessarily legal. It's another question as to whether Adam Silver wants to police it or not. But yeah, this is going to keep happening because, and the only thing I'll add, which we didn't, which you and I should talk about, it's like, I remember this time last year, and Taryn and I mentioned it briefly, but like, there was this so-called like alliance between the ACC, the Pac-12, and the Big Ten, and it's like, hey, we're going to align. We're not going to sign a contract, but we're all aligned. It's all good. And obviously the joke, and it was like meme country. It was like, this is why lawyers tell you to sign a contract, because all of a sudden, right, the Big Ten just stole two of the Pac-12 schools.
Right.
Landis, do you see the report today that potentially we're going to see some, like, I don't know, some ACC schools now potentially going to the SEC? So like the report today, again, it's conflicting. This is why the other reason, among a number of random North Carolina stories, North Carolina, Florida State, and Clemson and Virginia are in talks to join the SEC. ESPN is trying to avoid their TV deal with the ACC. Now, I've seen people try to refute this story, so we're just reading the tweets. But it's not going to shock anybody if the SEC, in trying to compete with the the Big Ten. Big Ten is now up to, they're trying to get 18 schools. I think it's Washington and Oregon that are
Yep.
also trying to make the move. So that would be 18, right? The SEC, it's going to be an arms race. So, this topic, conference realignment, it's no shortage of legal topics here. I'm going to ask you as the ACC guy, do you think the ACC is going to be poached here, or do you think they're going to align with someone, maybe sign a contract this time around?
Yeah, I think we got to see what happens with Notre Dame. I think it all depends on what Notre Dame's doing. I think everybody's circling around Notre Dame, trying to figure out if they can bring them into their conference. If Notre Dame decides to go to the Big Ten, I think you could see some teams from the ACC attempt to leave, but you got that, pesky grant of rights agreement out there that's going to cost a lot of money, and it's 10 years and all this stuff is going to cost a lot of money to get out of that. But I also think that the ACC is currently attempting to court Notre Dame as well and convince them to come and potentially get a lot more revenue with their ESPN deal. So I who knows, right? But I think right now it's all up to Notre Dame and what they want to do, and then you may see some other teams go on. I will say, as far as UNC, Duke, NC State, let me let you in on a little insight in North Carolina politics.
Whoa.
Okay.
Are we talking we talking about the triangle, or are we talking about
triangle? The UNC system is run by the Board of Governors. It's got a big Board of Governors. I can't remember how many members there are on it. NC State and UNC are in the UNC system that's run by this Board of Governors. And there's a lot of NC State people on that Board of Governors, and there's, UNC people on that Board of Governors. So it's going to get, it won't be good if just UNC is chosen to leave for the Big Ten and different things like that. So you may see some politics play into it as well as to whether teams will leave or will stay. So.
See, I'd feel really bad if Duke and North Carolina, they split up. Stranger things have happened, aka USC and UCLA going to the Big Ten. I think that's stranger geographically, optically, weatherly than Texas, Oklahoma. But okay. So let's leave that one there. The last one I want to get to before we bring in Josh and start talking some minor league baseball. Miles Bridges, Charlotte Hornets. We talk about Deshaun Watson a lot. People had tagged us in this, and I wanted to make sure we treated it appropriately. So I'm gonna read a portion of Miles Bridges' wife's comments on Instagram, a post that went viral. I haven't shared the pictures or anything online. It's just people want to look it up, they can. Read the first couple sentences here. I hate that it has come to this, but I can't be silent anymore. I've allowed someone to destroy my home, abuse me in every way possible, and traumatize our kids for life. I have nothing to prove to the world, but I won't allow anyone who could do something so horrible to have no remorse and paint a picture of me as something I'm not. So post goes on, is a number of slides of pictures showing alleged abuse from Miles Bridges. There's a video circulating about one of the children making comments about this alleged abuse. And it's terrible. You don't like to see anything like that going out, but I'm not going to say it's her prerogative to put this out in the open. It is what it is, right? And if this stuff is established as having actually occurred, right, and we can at some point drop the allegedly, like, you can't blame anyone but Miles Bridges. But that said, right, as of today, right, they're all allegations, right? The pictures notwithstanding. So, again, legal podcast, I'm not trying to get sued. We're just reporting the stuff that is put out there elsewhere. Why is a story that I think has picked up some traction? This Instagram post comes out at a time when Miles Bridges had already turned down a $60 million contract over 4 years, trying to hit it big. Landis, what's the max contract if you got it? What was the numbers there?
I think the numbers, Darius Garland just signed a rookie max deal, and the numbers were 5 years, $193 million, could be up to $231 million, I believe, over 5 years. So
it's a lot of money. It's generational wealth. And Miles Bridges took a calculated risk, right? He said, I want to, head to free agency. I don't want to take the money that's being offered to me now. I want to cash it in big. And all of a sudden, these allegations, the Hornets were pretty clear in their comments that they were planning to re-sign Bridges. They offered him an offer sheet. So if somebody else tried to sign Bridges, they could match it. Now, all of a sudden, the reports are that the Hornets are thinking of withdrawing their offer sheet. And then the bigger question is, like, who signs the guy? Who signs this guy to a max contract? I don't know. He's not. Bridges is a great player, right? Like,
of course.
I don't know. You could have that. You and I, I'm sure Landis at the time probably had the same conversation about Deshaun Watson. Like, who signs this player to that amount of money? Obviously the Browns did it, so it's not hypothetical. I don't know. Do you think that that Bridges finds a home in free agency, or it's going to be sitting on the sidelines for a while?
I think Bridges is sitting on the sidelines for a while. I don't think he finds a home. I don't think the NBA is a very forward-thinking league. In some things, you've seen what they've done historically, what advocacy they've done and different things. I'm not saying they're a perfect league or anything like that. I don't see Miles Bridges playing for a while, unless something he'll at least have to get this litigated out and figured out and everything. even then, I'm still not sure if he even plays again in the NBA.
I mean, no criminal charges, no civil cases, but the pictures are what they are, and
They are.
It's funny, like when this whole Deshaun Watson saga, I would, that's all lawyers really, we just deal in precedent. We try to find commonalities between other examples. And I would look at the Trevor Bauer stuff. Guy ends up with a 2-year suspension. Again, no active criminal case against him, no active civil case. He's kind of in the, I don't want to say in the clear legally, but like he doesn't have anything right now against him legally. It's a 2-year suspension. Watson obviously has a lot of stuff against him. He might get a year, he might get less than that. Who knows, right? And then the NBA didn't have a recent equivalent, and all of a sudden this Miles Bridges thing falls in. So, to your point, Landis, the NBA is a forward-thinking league, and for as much shit as we want to give Roger Goodell for not being hard enough on Dan Snyder, Adam Silver was very hard on Donald Sterling. Like when there was whispers, like, are they going to make him sell the team? Silver comes out and he goes, banned for life. That whole big, press conference. So Silver doesn't seem to be a guy that hides from these issues. He wants to get in front of them. He's been pretty silent on this regard. But yeah, I'm leaning towards you that all of a sudden Bridges is kind of a nuclear asset all of a sudden.
Yeah, I agree. Playing in the NBA, it's a privilege. It's not a right. And we'll see what happens.
I hear you there, and certainly well said. Okay, so let's move over to our guest. So Joshua Kusnick, again, former MLB agent. Josh is a man that wears many hats. But as we were talking about minor league baseball, Landis, you and I are running through topics. I'm like, Josh is going to be pretty opinionated here. So I think we can just kick to him. And without further ado, let us kick it over to Josh Kusnick. Josh, you did such a good job on the last episode. We had a lot of feedback on Twitter and otherwise, but we had to bring you back. And what do we know? We have a minor league baseball story.
Yeah, back in late June, the U.S. Senate Judiciary sent a letter to Advocates for Minor League Justice, the executive director, Harry Marino. And today we got Advocates for Minor League Justice. We got their response to that letter, and it was regarding the antitrust exemption for Major League Baseball. Josh, can you tell us a little bit about what we got going on here and what's going on in minor league baseball?
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably plain speak this one from my experience as an agent. So I was in the trenches with these guys on the minor league side for almost 20 years. And I started, like I had said last time, when I was 19 years old. So at the time, these guys were the same age as me. And I got to see what they went through up close that whole time. And what's crazy, like just brass tacks, as the minor league guys in 2002, what they were getting paid, like that salary level structure is still in place today with no upshot up until a lot of this information became public that the teams didn't want out there. And it forced at least some raises a couple of years ago during the CBA talks. But by and large, the players are pissed that unfair labor practices are happening against them because of the antitrust exemption that's almost 100 years old and really is not that applicable right now. And in reality, and the main reason it still exists, in my opinion, is it's still used as a negotiation tactic for labor talks. So whenever the players or the ownership side gets too far gone in some kind of labor strife and there's a face of a labor apocalypse of losing a season, the executive branch tends to jump in and says, hey, owners and players, we're going to pull your antitrust exemption if you don't get back to the bargaining table. And that's how it's been since I was a little kid. So for me, in a perfect world, we get rid of the antitrust exemption like the lawsuit wants, and then just treat everybody fairly. But that's not how capitalism works. So there we are.
So Josh, 100% there's litigation, but really the news that we wanted to focus on, Landis, you have a good article that you have up on the website now, is really about the attack on baseball's antitrust exemption, which, last time I think we covered it on the podcast was talking about when they moved the All-Star game out of Atlanta, and there was threats to, take away baseball's antitrust exemption. How dare they move the All-Star game from Atlanta to Colorado because of some voter laws, which we're not going to get into here. But, we've talked about on the show, there's different litigation still pending about, there's right now a lawsuit by former minor league teams that were contracted. We're following all these different litigation, but it seems to be just a global attack on the antitrust exemption. And Landis's article now, the points that are being raised are, why are minor league baseballs basically playing the sport for the entire year, but only being paid seasonally, right? Why are baseball players, their rights controlled for 7 years, give or take with the minor league, with the arbitration system, and there's no movement. Some of those, right, are going to be covered by collective bargaining, right? And this non-statutory labor exemption. You can do things that are violative of an antitrust prohibition if the union agrees to it. So some of these the union has agreed to, and other ones just exist solely because of this antitrust exemption. So yeah, Landis, I'll give back to you, but to be clear, right, the news today is obviously what we're reporting on. A friend of the show, Ivan Drellick, is reporting on it. But yeah, Landis, I guess paint a little bit picture, but Josh is obviously a good resource for this, having been so connected to baseball for many years.
It's clear that the Senate Judiciary Committee is wanting to do something about this issue. They've heard about this issue. It's Sin. It's other cases going around. It's the minor league teams I believe they were in New York, that got removed from minor league baseball, and they sued the league, and they want to go after the antitrust exemption. Josh, I do want to talk about this point because I think it's very important to sort of put a picture with this. And advocates for minor league baseball did a little bit about talking about certain things. They talked a little bit, put some pictures in there. They didn't put any pictures there, but they sort of painted a picture for people talking about, especially in regards to international athletes. We don't necessarily need to talk about international athletes, but you say you've been in the trenches with these people. Can you describe what some of these labor practices are that they're talking about? It's not just salary. It goes to living conditions and other things. Can you describe some of that?
Yeah, it's embarrassing. And just as a preface, the one thing I would say is it's nice to see Congress and these people with these headlines talking about, we're going to change the labor, the antitrust exemption. I know how this is going to end because I know who pays for all of this. The owners are still here. The one thing I learned in Major League Baseball when I was very young in the game, someone from MLB came up to me and said, the thing you have to know when you work in the sport is whether you're a grounds crew guy, you're an agent, you're a player, you're an announcer, you're a podcaster, you're a writer. At the end of the day, all of us work for the owners. So there are no sides. So Congress, who gets all of their funding from these owners, this is all theater to me. Nothing will change. And especially, I don't want to dive into it too much. It's important to pay attention when these things happen, who's in the executive branch. With a Republican in office, there's a real threat that ownership could do whatever they wanted. With a Democrat in office, maybe there's a chance labor will get ahead. I'm not saying who's in office. I'm just saying party-wise, it plays into all of this. But for me, shading all of it, I don't think any of this changes because I know how things work. That's my negative outlook of all of this. That being said, the things the players have to go through, it's hellish and stupid, and they don't get a lot of sympathy from the fans because I think there's still a tinge of jealousy, like, they're pro athletes. What do they need? It's a choice. They could go get a job. And that's not really fair. It's a job too. And if you have a player here, I'll give you a great example. I had a guy called up to the big leagues that I worked for years named Dave McKinnon, who's with the Angels. Dave's with the Angels right now in the big leagues. I saw him in Miami yesterday. He's awesome. He's playing with Shohei Ohtani and Trout and hitting cleanup. And I mean, it's crazy. So let me tell you about Dave. Dave was in Boston at a very small college. It's D3 now. It used to be D1, Hartford College. He was a soccer goalie, and he's married, great guy, has a baby, and he goes to the minor league, gets drafted after 4 years of college of hitting like 400 and a D1 athlete. He gets $1,000 signing bonus, which got taxed, and he didn't pay me. So fun times. Then he goes to the minor leagues. He signs a 6-year contract. But like you alluded to earlier, it's not 6 years, 7 years, because those 6 years don't count on linear time. They count in the contract that the player signs under the guise of you have to attend six spring trainings. So if you get drafted in June and you sign for 6 years, how are you going to spring training? You can't. So that first year doesn't count. Fun times. So it's 7 years. Then your salary structure is generally locked in for those first 7 years. The team all the way down to the GCL level, rookie ball instructional league, and I'll get to Latin American kids who get treated the absolute worst by the teams, at least structurally. You're looking in the GCL for some guys getting paid like Dave McKinnon, Arizona League, $1,000 a month, $1,100 a month, living in a team hotel if he's lucky, with a roommate. Pre-tax, so like $400, $500 every 2 weeks. And then that's it. The team doesn't cover equipment costs. They don't pay for bats. They don't pay for anything. You're on your own. Then you only get paid 6 months out of the year. They don't pay for your transportation. They didn't pay for your living. So in the off season, the players are getting part-time jobs. Dave used to do hitting lessons. And for a guy in his position, if he didn't have the help from his wife, specifically in his family, like everybody banded around him so he could live his dream, he wouldn't have made it. And most guys don't. And the way the teams get away with it is they sell that bullshit dream. They sell, hey, if you sign, you got a uniform, you got a chance. And that's not true at all. They have their analytical data models and they pick the winners every single time. So the joke, finger quotes, which I always found disgusting, is if you talk to any team, you have a bunch of prospects in the system, and then you have a bunch of other guys who play with the prospects to fill out the roster who really have no chance of making it unless something flukishly happens, like McKinnon, who kept at it long enough that he knocked the door down. But the system's inherently built to cater to very few players. So that's why they contracted the teams. It's counterintuitive, like, oh, you want more teams, more players, more scouting. And that's not what they look at. They have their finite amount of prospects within each organization, and they don't care about anybody else legitimately. So any issues, injuries, there are guys that will hide injuries in the minors because they don't want to get released because they didn't have enough money invested in them. Dave McKinnon had more money invested in by the Angels in his knee surgery than his signing bonus in salary combined.
Josh, I was going to give you the soapbox for as long as you wanted. I mean, it's a tragic story. We had Garrett Brocious on our show a while back, a mutual friend of ours, an attorney. He's been leading the charge of minor leaguers. I've tried to get him on the podcast, talk about that settlement, but I think he's wrapped up in confidentialities. But he told a similar story of riding the bus, and it just wasn't conducive to a long-term career. So Garrett, like many minor leaguers did, he left the game, right? And he went to be a successful attorney, and now Garrett's doing big things in the minor league side. So, I mean, I guess I'll kick it to you, Landis. I know you're studying the topic academically, and Josh, you're obviously you're very close to it. Is there a world where minor leaguers, right, like are treated anywhere akin to major leaguers, right? We're seeing this a topic that we spent a lot of time with. Minor leaguers, right, get paid, I'll say, absolute garbage. The crazy thing, you guys know I like to draw comparisons here. Mm-hmm. The NIL world, those guys are getting paid millions of dollars. There are college athletes getting paid well more than the pro minimum in any number of sports, be it the NFL, be it the NBA. Some guys are getting 8-figure deals, and I'm just looking now, right? College baseball has never really had this national spotlight. Our friends over in Omaha, Nebraska, with the College Baseball World Series. I don't know, in the crazy world of baseball and college economics, there's a world where like college baseball players can get paid exponentially more than minor leaguers. So I don't know, is there any risk?
I feel like I should steal this one given my actual job right now. So I've been consulting with Perfect Game for over a year, the high school organization that everyone knows. And that is an interesting topic that you mentioned, because part of my job is figuring that out. And yes, it is more advantageous for a college player to go, like a high school kid, to go profit off of NIL than going into Pro Bowl. It's not even close. So it's interesting that the teams on their side, like looking at it with my agent hat on, they really haven't calculated that yet, because they still think we're Major League Baseball. Kids want to live the dream. They'll give it up and that's it. But they're going to run into it. The teams haven't adjusted to the NIL world yet. And when you have a kid that is a slam dunk to go pro and be a top 10 pick, and a team takes him and they think they have a deal or whatever, and then some NIL deal comes in for more money, watch, that's when things will change. And it will happen. Someone will do it.
Because I want to jump in here, then Landis, I'm going to give it to you, right? Like in basketball, which I recently sat down for a documentary on like the economics of basketball. And as I was sitting there, I was talking to the director. I'm like, and he goes, is this happening in other sport? Right now, there's the Overtime Basketball League, which is paying high school aged basketball players 6 figures, some of them on the high end of 6 figures, to basically not go to college, and they'll just get paid a lot of money to play in high school. And then they could go turn pro. They could go to Australia. They could go to the NBA G League. They could do any number of things. So, Major League Baseball is not doing that. They're not, the NBA is paying players in their G League. They're kind of incentivizing guys to leave, to not go to college. and just get paid a lot of money to stay within their developmental system. Baseball's not doing that. They're fighting their minor leaguers. They're fighting their minor league teams. They're contracting teams. At some point, there's going to be a challenge to the minor league system, and maybe it's perfect game. Maybe it's overtime, or whoever it is that wants to pay top athletes to not go to college. So, Landis, are you hearing of anything else that is? I think it's only basketball, right? Am I crazy? That is like, there's the XFL is not going after high school guys. I don't, there's no other sport doing it as far as I know.
No, there's really no other sport that I can think of off the top of my mind that is doing that. I'm thinking, back to, if you're talking about people challenging everything, I mean, I think the closest they got to getting rid of that exemption, I actually agree with Josh here that this is just lip service from Congress of what's going on with the Senate Judiciary Committee. I think the closest they got to removing the exemption was Sin via Major League Baseball. I think that was what was going to be the closest to get to removing the exemption, allowing these other leagues to come to fruition and be competitive with Major League Baseball. And of course, that is settled, and they're working through a settlement.
Good reason to settle the case. Good reason.
Exactly.
And also Sonia Sotomayor, when she basically ended the labor fiasco in '94. Yeah. That was when the closest anyone ever had a chance to getting rid of the stupid antitrust exemption. But to answer one other question you asked me earlier, for Latin American kids, you're asking me some of the worst stuff I saw. I would see 6 to 8 kids, and I say kids, 16, 17, 18 years old, don't speak English, in a suite, 2 in a bed, 2 on the floor, bunking. And this is like, I'm not talking fringe prospects. Like, I mean, I saw Kenley Jansen as a prospect when I represented him in the minors on a cot. Like, that's how they treated their investments then. And Kenley Jansen's probably going to be in the Hall of Fame. When these guys come in, when you say, oh, you're going to have to prove them wrong, you generally have to. The teams really make player development so much harder than they need to. And the sad thing is, if they viewed the players as investments, all of them, instead of just replaceable commodities, which is what they do, I don't know how much more profitable it would be. And I've literally asked general managers this year. I spoke to a major league general manager a week ago, and I said, if you just didn't sign an outfielder for $10 million and you reinvested it in paying your minor league system to attract more talent so people like you or whatever it is, you just reinvest that money into what you already have instead of that, is that a competitive advantage for you that doesn't exist out there? And the answer to me was, I would love to do that. Ownership won't let me. That was from a GM. So it isn't always the GM's fault. Some of this comes from ownership, and they like it this way. And if you ask me why, money. It's always the answer. It's always the answer. And this is my favorite example, and I'm so happy I get to do this on your show. For real. This is my favorite example I ever got to explain ownership in the labor fiasco so people understand in the most basic terms what ownership's mindset is for everything. If you could have a publicly subsidized stadium, right, paid by taxpayers, and have it completely populated by those taxpayers, and serve those taxpayers beer and not have any game and just have a really expensive bar, ownership would pick that every single time.
I mean, it's certainly not a shock, right? These leagues are run; they're for-profit ventures at the end of the day. So I don't know, Josh. I don't know if I have any more in particular on this. I did want to bring up, a lot of good feedback from your last appearance on our show. I will say, Josh, you're pretty much an open book. So just so people are aware, and it didn't come up on the last episode. It probably should have. Josh, you alluded to it, right? To those that haven't listened, you should go back and listen to the Josh talking about Freddie Freeman and Casey Close, which we don't have any new updates on that front. But, a couple of our listeners or some savvy people on Twitter, brought up that you alluded to it, you have a history with Excel Sports, from
and Jet, which splintered off, which was really out of context there in the clip we had.
But I want to give you a little bit of credit for something, right? Somebody's heard that we had you on the show, and they'll remain nameless. I'll tell you all for someone very big. And they said, why is Josh on the show talking about Excel? He's got a beef with Excel. And I'm like, well, would it surprise you that Josh was actually defending Excel despite their beef? And I don't know how comfortable you are talking about it, but
yeah, I'm probably,
I'll leave it to you. But so Josh, on the last show, you defended essentially Casey Close. You said that story doesn't make any sense. Somebody fed that to Doug Gottlieb, and it doesn't make sense. I don't believe that if the team told it to Doug Gottlieb, I don't believe the team. And then Josh, since after our episode came out, Casey Close had a statement basically accusing the Braves of leaking that to Doug Gottlieb. So I want to give you a little bit credit for being on the ball. And I also want to give you credit, and for the listeners that pointed it out, that you were defending Excel Sports Management, despite the fact that you, at least at one point, hated Excel Sports Management. I don't know if you want to tell the story.
Yeah, no, let me correct you. Yeah, let me correct you. No, I still hate them right now. They suck. I hate them right this second. I think what they do is bad. But in that case, I don't think what they did was bad. I think the team is terrible. But like, I would never tell people, you know what, Excel's great, go hire them. That would not be a thing that would come out of my mouth. But I also would not accuse them of being liars, because I don't think in that situation they were. But like, I'm not going to sit here and start bad mouthing X, Y, and Z when I know certain things about certain agents. And if it's true, I'll say it. And if it's not, I'll say it too. But again, Excel, not my personal brand of agency. It's very cold and methodical, and they do the plug and play. If you're Freddie Freeman, you hire them and they can do the job perfectly. I was a bit of a character. Some players like that better. But again, if you were to ask me that scenario at those stakes, what's at risk? The players that they represent already, the draft picks that they have, the guys they try to recruit. Freddie Freeman, I know this is going to sound crazy, is not worth enough money to them to lie about. So for me, the front office, it was just so obvious. And anytime you see a report of an agent that comes out, oh, agent gets fired because the money didn't match up. The only time those stories leak is when there's something with an agenda, because I used to leak those stories and people used to leak them about me. It happens. So, long story short, trust the agent on this one time, and then, reevaluate the other ones.
Josh, listen, we loved having you. You're always welcome back on here, and great job. Last episode, great job this episode, and I'll speak to you soon, buddy.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Talk to you tomorrow. So that was Josh Kusnick. A reminder, our podcast is sponsored by Themis Bar Review. If you're listening to this now, the bar is right around the corner, and if you are a rising 3L, bar is going to be basically a year from today. So if you're not sure you're going to take for bar prep, and maybe you're a 1L, 2L, Themis Bar Review, top bar prep company in the galaxy. I know a lot of our listeners did not, let's just say, I don't want to say a lot, but a handful of our listeners did not pick Themis, and they regretted that decision, and they felt guilty telling me that because they know I'm a Themis guy. So don't feel guilty about anything. Always be able freely to tell me anything you want, but just pick Themis, and that would be great. Then we have no issues. Okay. So, Landis, I know there was probably one other topic we didn't ask Josh about, the Save America's Pastime Act. We shouldn't do a topic about minor league baseball without bringing it up, so I'll give you the floor to explain it.
Congress passed that law in reaction to Sim v. MiLB being filed, and it basically exempts Major League Baseball from federal minimum wage and overtime laws. And that is another thing that Harry Marino talked about in his letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee, was the Save America's Pastime Act and repealing the Save America's Pastime Act. So that...
Listen, we gotta cover all the elements to it. It is no easy task when you're covering minor league baseball. When you give them the antitrust exemption, they jump through hoops. The Curt Flood Act, which obviously Josh brought up briefly with the Clinton legislation. There's a lot of complicated elements here, but we tried to cover all of it. Okay, so we're not going to cover it, but Brittany Griner obviously pleads guilty to drug charges over in Russia. We'll see what goes on, if there's going to be some type of prisoner exchange. It's a little too political for us over here. But obviously, we're going to monitor that to the extent something comes up, or if we find an international lawyer who deals in Russian criminal law, that's going to help us break it down. But I'm certainly not going to dive down that. I had to turn down a couple interview requests on Griner. I'm like, I'm not familiar with the Russian criminal system to be able to talk about it. Okay, and I think last but not least, so we do a topic, Landis, that we haven't done in a little bit, but let's I'm gonna put you on the spot here.
Let's do it.
So we have a topic called "What to Watch For," and it's the people just kind of get a sense of what we're looking for in the future. So I'm going to start. I don't know what your answer here is going to be, but the sports law topic that we have not gotten to, but we're going to look forward to. So the one I will talk about here is Kevin Durant. We did not talk about this in the last podcast. The news broke just as we were finishing up. Kevin Durant demands a trade from the Brooklyn Nets. The betting odds, the future market went absolutely bananas. And looks like Kevin Durant is going to want to trade out of town. Then all of a sudden you looked at the betting odds the next day, and those betting odds had kind of maybe reflecting that Durant might stay, might not. The Nets might not trade him. We'll see. The point is, we're looking at potentially a holdout scenario between Kevin Durant, a guy who has 4 years left on his deal, and the Brooklyn Nets. So we'll see. It's hard to find a trade package for a guy like Kevin Durant, especially in the NBA where you have to match up salaries. It's a very, very tricky scenario. And I don't know if Joe Tsai, who's basically given the keys to the franchise to Durant and Kyrie, and they've kind of run the car off the road, so to speak. I'm not sure how willing he is just to trade Durant in the middle of everything, especially when they've already, re-upped with Kyrie. So we'll see. I'm watching that one very closely. Landis, I will give it to you. What are you watching for on the sports law front, sports front? The floor is yours.
I don't have a what to watch for, but I have a what I watched, and that is I watched Simone Biles and Megan Rapinoe be awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom, as well as the Raiders making history, naming Sandra Douglas Morgan as the team president, and she is the first Black woman to be hired as a president of an NFL team. So
an attorney. Let's not leave
an
out
attorney.
That
That's true. And former chair of the Nevada Gaming Control Board. Shout out Dan Wallach on that.
It's funny. I looked at her. That was a pretty good. It's not really the topic. It's what to watch for in the future. But what I watch is not bad. But I saw it. I'm like, attorney. Then I looked up her background. I'm like, gaming commission. Okay. So maybe Wallach's onto something. We should be hitting more sports betting legislation. And then, Landis, who knows? Maybe you and I are president of some team someday. How about that?
Hey, you never know what can happen these days.
Okay, so in the limited time we have, I'm going to give you a bonus what to watch for. I am turning the old age of 34 in about a week. By the time many of you listen to this, I have 2 little girls. One of them is born in November. The other one, Landis, get this, was born a day after me. So wow. And she's about to turn 1. So this is the first time in my life that I will no longer have a birthday. This birthday does not belong to me anymore. My birthday, I'll just say it, July 15th, and July 16th is my daughter's birthday. So that's it. She turns 1. I've now lost my birthday. My wife's planning a very elaborate 1-year birthday, and she turns to me, and mind you, my birthday is first. It's not after, it's first. Yeah. And she goes, do you want like a cupcake or something? And I'm like, do I want a cupcake? She gets the Cocoa Melon people are coming. We have the big shindig plan. She's like, do you want a cupcake? I'm like, I don't know, just get me a candle. I'll blow it out and that'll be it. But yeah, that's what you have to look forward to. So if you can, anyone that's listening, try not to have a kid within 72 hours of your birthday. I think that's the rule. It's a good life lesson. It's very applicable. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I was going to call someone out. Someone in our sports law circles just landed a very big job, but we'll save that. I don't have their permission. So somebody that's published for our site, someone that, if people need any incentive to do it, we do tell you that writing certainly helps. And for this person, we'll see if I get some permission to talk about it, but a very nice job going their way in the sports law world. Okay, Landis, anything to add before we put this in the books?
Nothing new. Let's put it in the books.
Okay, Landis, excellent job. For Dan Wallach, who is at a conference, we could not join us. He'll be back on to talk Watson on our next episode. But for Dan, myself, the Conduct Detrimental family, we will see you all next time on another episode of Conduct Detrimental.